There's so much that we could say about Easter, but we want to share just 3 things from this passage. The first is that Easter is about God doing something new. John says, early on the first day of the week, while it was still dark, Mary Magdalene went to the tomb. Now that phrase, on the first day, comes up somewhere else in the Bible. Can you think about when? Yes, that's right. In the book of Genesis, at the very beginning, it was dark until the first day of creation, when God spoke and light broke through the darkness. Well, John is wanting to say that this is the first day of the new creation. In the darkness of that Sunday morning, as Mary stumbled her way to the tomb, God was doing something new.
Have you ever watched the sunrise? At first, it's completely dark, and then slowly, the sun begins to emerge. The light changing the scene in front of us. It's beautiful. It's a vision of hope. So too, Easter is a vision of hope, of not being alone in this world, of seeing the world as full of God's glory, of coming to know this God who has done something new in this world.
Did you notice that a race happens in that Easter story between 2 of Jesus' disciples who race to the tomb? Now, to get an idea, Andrew and I thought we would do something fun. We thought we would have a little race of our own.
So here's the challenge. We're going to run and race all the way down the centre of Parkway.
Starting here, past the fountain, all the way down to near Christchurch Parkway.
We're going to keep more than 2 metres away from anybody else we come across, and we're going to time it, and we'll see who wins. On your marks.
Get set.
Go.
Go.
I'm there.
Oh, how do I do?
3 minutes, 15 seconds.
3 minutes 15. Wonder how Andrew did. Oh dear. Can you imagine Peter and John running to the tomb, trying to get there as fast as they could because they wanted to find out if what Mary had said was true. Was the tomb really empty? What had happened?
And having run, when they got there, Peter goes straight in and he sees the strips of linen that Jesus had worn lying there on the floor, the headbands folded up neatly. And it says he saw and he believed. His faith was then shown to be true as well when he later saw Jesus in the flesh, risen, alive.
The Christian message isn't a bunch of rules, it's not even a bunch of ideas about God. The Christian message is that something has happened. Jesus has been raised from the dead, and it's a message that ignites faith in us.
What would it take for you to believe? It's often different things for different people. For some, it's a sifting through the evidence for Jesus, for the resurrection, and coming to believe it's true for yourself and to trust.
For others, it's seeing God answer prayers in really clear ways, or seeing people healed. For others, it's sensing God's presence in a very real and tangible way, even in the toughest times in life. Whatever it is for each one of us, faith is going to involve something of the determination that we see here in Peter and John. Not a passive waiting for God to show up, although sometimes that's required, but more an active seeking, pursuing, determined, running after God, after truth, after faith, after his presence. Easter ignites faith in us.
The third thing is, Easter's lived out in our everyday life, wherever we are. It says at the end they went back to where they were staying. Imagine how they would have felt as they wandered back to where they were staying. Excited, maybe confused, uncertain, believing that Jesus had risen, and yet wanting to know what it all meant, what was to happen from here.
They went back to where they were staying. In fact, they were quickly in lockdown, keeping themselves in isolation as a group because they knew that once news got out that Jesus' body was no longer in the tomb, the authorities would be after them, accusing them. Read on in John's Gospel and you discover that Jesus meets them where they are in lockdown, in their not so normal everyday life. They meet the risen Jesus.
Even then, they don't know what to do. Those who were fishermen headed back to Galilee to fish. That's what they were used to. Their normal way of life continued, but it was not so normal now because they knew Jesus was alive. After all, they'd met him. And yet again, it's in their everyday activities that they're going to meet the risen Jesus.
For us too, everyday life may feel pretty normal, but we live out the tremors of Easter wherever we are. And it's in the midst of the normal, routine tasks that fill our days, whatever they are, wherever they are, that we know and experience the risen Jesus. Easter is lived out in our everyday life because we have risen to a new life in him.
Mind you, our everyday lives are not so normal right now. Many of us are stuck at home, our routines have been ripped up, and our regular lives suddenly so different. Listen to a poem now reflecting on the way the coronavirus crisis has stripped our lives, emptied our calendars, and it's like the bare leaves of a tree in winter. There's a purpose to be found in winter, to be sure, and listen to the way Easter gives us a new perspective on what's to come.
The COVID Winter, written by Katie Smith on the 17th of March this year.
It started slowly, like the first leaves in autumn. First one, then two, then three at once, and then a flurry.
Suddenly, all the plans I had made were gone. The calendar stood bare like a winter tree.
The people I loved, isolated. The routine I knew, decimated. The pattern of my life, changed, almost unrecognisable.
I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord.
But I want my plans. I want what I thought I would have. The meetings, the people, and the places.
Spring is in the air, but it feels like winter. An eerie, quiet winter. A frightening, Narnian winter. With no Christmas to brighten the days, but a stopping, worrying, waiting, questioning winter.
When will this end? Will the world be the same after? Who will I be when it's over?
Then I remember that despite appearances, winter is not just waiting. It is recharging, strengthening, preparing for new life and an abundant growth, for the beauty of flowers and the miracle of birth.
And I remember that in the darkness of Good Friday, the disciples despaired, believing that the world as they knew it was over.
And it was. But what came next was joy, transformation, a new life, and a new mission.
The old and familiar was gone, and the new was infinitely better.
Thank you. This winter feels hard, but I will give it to God, trusting in his promise of hope and renewal, looking to Easter whenever it comes, believing that in God's time, not my time, life will be renewed.
Thank you. That's such a great poem that points us towards new life, new hope, new joy, new mission. Do you know, last year in our Easter service as a response, we had some large wooden crosses and we covered them with flowers that we brought in as a symbol of the way that Easter transforms our lives. Now, today at home, our response, we're going to keep it a little bit simpler. So what I suggest you do, if you've got a garden, then get a grown-up with a pair of scissors, and why don't you head out and agree with them if there's a flower that you can cut, or maybe some blossom that you can bring inside. Just agree with them which bits that you do. Now, if you're in a flat or you don't have a garden, then please don't go out and cut anybody else's, will you? Okay, you're just going to have to get creative and produce your own flower or blossom out of paper or something else, which means that all the origami experts amongst you can get very creative. Here's something Simon did earlier.
Put it somewhere inside as a reminder of the new day that God has brought about that we can enter into, and a reminder that Jesus has risen, he lives. This flower may also remind you to offer your everyday life to God, expecting to meet and experience him. As that poem that was read suggests, we can pray, "These times we're living in are really hard, Lord, but I will give myself to you, trusting in your promise of hope and renewal."
The song that we're going to have right now, it helps us just to do that, to enter into this new thing that God is doing, that he's opened up for us, and to offer ourselves to him. It's a song that came back with a group who'd been to New Wine, and our BSL group helped as we first came across it by signing the chorus, "Thank you, thank you, thank you for the cross." And in the light of Easter, we can do that. We thank God for the cross. And the words of one of the verses say this: "All of me, I give my life to you. Receive this offering. It's all I have, but you deserve my everything."